Hi guys, Virtus Education here with episode 10 of the HTML web programming tutorial series, and in today's episode we're going to be continuing on with tables. Having said that, we're going to be going over a few extra settings that we can play around with, just to advance our tables a little bit further. So there's a few different settings that I want to go over in this episode. So first and foremost, I want to show you how to change the width and height of specific cells, so you can change them so they're bigger, smaller, wider, shorter, and so on and so forth. This is great for doing like structural stuff, or if you just generally want more space. I also want to go over the border again to change the border width, and I also want to go over Rowspan and Colspan. Rowspan essentially just allows you to just make a specific cell span multiple rows, and Colspan just essentially allows you to make a specific cell span over 2 or more cells. So let's just go ahead and get started. So first and foremost, let's go over the width and height settings that we can play around with. So using our old table code here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play around with the height of this very first cell of mine. So what I want to do here is quickly just change the width and height. You may want to do this for cells that need to be bigger, for example if they have images inside of them, or if you want them to stand out, or anything along those lines. So if you want to set the width or height, all you got to do is just type in the property. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and press width equals 2 little exclamation mark. Then inside of this, I'm going to go ahead and set whatever I want the width to be in either a relative or absolute term. In this case, I'm going to set this to 90%. Go ahead and refresh, and you can see it's made this nice and big. Now just keep in mind, I can do exactly the same thing for height if I wanted to, and I can go ahead and change this to a pixel, absolute term instead of relative. So for example, if I wanted to, I could set the height to say 100, Control S to save, refresh, and you can see this is nice and big. Now keep in mind, anything you put inside of your table, whether it's images, text, and so on, you can scale manually by just playing around with that, to make it fit whatever it is you're trying to do. So let's just go ahead and change the width of this first cell here so that it fits a little bit better with the text, because we've got quite a bit of text in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this to say 600 here, just so this text here fits, and that looks about right. But let's just go ahead and play around with that value just a little bit more. So let's say go ahead and set this to 450, and you can see it's now changed accordingly. Now we can also play around with the border width. I've already shown you that in the previous video, so I'm just going to reiterate. So this attribute can be applied inside of the table tag here, and you essentially just type in border equals, and then inside of little 2 quotation marks, you just set the border width in pixels. So for example, if I wanted it to be a really thick border, I could set this to 5, refresh, and we've got some really thick border. Let's go ahead and change this to say 15, and you'll really be able to see it increase as I set it. Now keep in mind, you can play around with the border style using CSS, which I will cover in another series. So let's just go ahead and change this to something a little bit more fitting for this specific table, which is going to be 2. Now the last 2 things I want to go over in this episode is Colspan and Rowspan, as I described previously. So let's just go ahead and create another table row here, and we're going to start Colspanning some of this stuff. So just go ahead and make that extra table row like I showed you previously. TR tags open and closed. Then inside of that, I'm going to go ahead and create my table data tags too, just like this. And inside of this, I'm going to write footer, and in most cases, footers are going to span 2 little columns here. So let's just go ahead and do that. So if you want to make a specific cell span 2 columns, using the Colspan, all you got to do is inside of the TD tag, just press space and type in Colspan equals, and then 2 quotation marks, and inside of that, just set however many columns you want it to span through. So keep in mind you should only really use Colspan on 2 or more. So if I go ahead and save, refresh, you can see that it has now spanned. If I wanted to, I can even use Rowspan to go ahead and make this span 2 columns, so it'll add an extra bit of space there. So let's just go ahead and do that. Rowspan equals quotation marks 2, and it should go ahead and fill up. However, obviously, it's not going to do that as of right now, due to the fact that we're actually missing a line there. It sees no reason to do it. So let's just go ahead and type in a whole bunch of J's or just something like that, so you can see this a little bit better. Control S, save, and you know, I'm just gonna not bother with that. Anyway, it's pretty much everything you need to know about Colspan and Rowspan. Colspan goes that way, whereas Rowspan goes this way. So let's just quickly show you that in action. Rowspan equals, and then 2, and then it should hopefully work. Here, there we go, you can see it's now spanning 2. But we don't really need to worry about that. Keep in mind, when if you are working with Colspan and Rowspan, that it may occasionally mess around with the formatting in your table, so make sure you use it carefully. For the most part, you won't probably need to use Rowspan, but you will definitely use Colspan when you're doing stuff. So play around with this, Colspan, Rowspan, and the other 2 settings I went over, border, and width and height. So yeah, it's pretty much everything I wanted to go over in this episode. Thanks for watching, comment, like, and subscribe. And don't forget to check out the next episode, where I'll be showing you how to use tables to form the structure of a website. So I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.